This is a presentation on essay writing made by the Disability Service of Trinity College Dublin. In this podcast, I will work through a 5-part model for an academic essay frequently used in arts subjects. This essay structure can be represented in a diagram like a sweet shape. The top triangle is the introduction, the middle rectangle is the main body, and the bottom triangle represents the conclusion. The reason it is represented in this way is because the top triangle starts off broad and becomes narrow. This is what you do in an introduction of an essay. Start broadly with the subject matter, then narrow to what your essay is specifically about in your thesis statement. Your thesis statement outlines the argument of your essay and indicates the structure of your argument. This is followed by 3 points that support your argument or thesis statement. Each point is developed into a paragraph that fully explains your point. Once you have fully developed 3 main points supported with reference to other relevant sources and evidence, you finish with a conclusion. Your conclusion should show that you have supported your thesis statement, drawing out the implications of your findings and reflecting on the significance of your research. This is an English literature essay, but the ideas discussed here are broadly applicable to essays in arts and humanities subjects. First, we will look at the introduction, which corresponds with the upside-down triangle at the top of our sweet-shaped diagram. The opening lines of this essay provide an overview of academic scholarship and outline the trends in research on Jane Austen's novels since the 1970s. If you remember back to the sweet-shaped essay structure, this corresponds with the broad end of the top triangle, as we are dealing broadly with Jane Austen as a novelist and scholarship on all of her novels at this point. We have not yet narrowed down to the specific focus of the essay, which will be Jane Austen's novel Pride and Prejudice. The opening line of the essay shows that the writer is up to date with scholarship on Jane Austen and thus well placed to have a scholarly opinion on Austen's novels. Line 2 of this essay establishes the author's credentials in more detail, providing more specifically the topics that have been addressed by Austen scholars and providing a footnote to guide readers to the most useful or influential texts on the subject outlined in line 1. At this point, the writer can then establish whether or not they will be writing along the same lines as the scholarship outlined in the first line, or will be taking a different line of inquiry altogether. The third and fourth lines of this essay bring us closer to the essay writer's topic, as it states the line of inquiry taken by Austen scholars in recent years. The essay writer then cites in line 5 an article that is likely to have influenced the essay writer. The writer then follows with the line, "In Pride and Prejudice, 1813, I shall suggest Austen entered a similar debate about the role of army, specifically militia officers, in a manner that aligned her, at least on this issue, with the public rhetoric, not of her Tory neighbours, but of radical Whigs." This line is the thesis statement. This is the most important sentence of the introduction. After outlining other scholarly approaches to Austen, the essay writer at this point explicitly states what he will be arguing in relation to Austen. Note the use of the first-person pronoun I. You may have heard that it is best not to write I in an essay, but it is acceptable to use it in your thesis statement. Here, using I serves to distinguish this essay writer's opinion from the others and states exactly what the argument of the essay will be. This comes at the end of the first introductory paragraph. In this essay, the writer has another short paragraph as part of the introduction. This serves to indicate the structure of the essay, pointing out that before really tackling the thesis just set out, it will be important to outline the relevant debate that lies behind the issue. So if we think back to the sweet-shaped essay structure, in this introduction we have the 3 main elements here: the background to the topic, an indication of the structure of the argument, and the thesis statement. Often the thesis statement is the last line of the introduction, but it does not necessarily have to be so, as we can see here in this essay. As you can see here in this essay on Austen, there is a flourish here added by the printer to separate the introduction from the main body of the essay. You do not have to add this. Simply following the structure outlined above and beginning a new paragraph at this point will show the reader that you are now beginning the first of your support points for your thesis. In this particular essay, the writer begins here to outline the debate as they suggested they would in the introduction. You do not necessarily have to do this and can begin here with your first supporting point. In this essay on Jane Austen, the main body of the essay is structured differently to the straightforward suite shape, as the author outlines a debate that informs his argument. But the central idea after this remains the same. After discussing the historical context of the Napoleonic Wars and the image of the military at this time, the essay writer then brings this information to the text in hand, Pride and Prejudice, and clarifies the thesis of the essay. The main argument is indicated by another flourish. Scanning through the rest of the essay, you will find that the first line of each paragraph is very important and can stand alone as a summary of the argument that is in the paragraph. Each paragraph should have one main idea that is supported by the information in the rest of that paragraph, or a question that frames the discussion that follows. Note that where there are questions in the essay, the author answers them immediately. Another editor's flourish indicates the beginning of the writer's conclusion. Note that the writer does not begin with "in conclusion" or "in summary." Here, the first line indicates the main finding of the essay based on the argument above and referring back to an argument made above to support it. Jane Austen could discern the true character beneath the uniform, but in the figures of Lydia, Wickham and Forster, she showed her fear that many of her compatriots could not. The next sentence clarifies this and adds further explication. Other implications and findings derived from the argument follow, but the writer does not begin any new line of argument here. This is all a summary, in different words, of the findings that have been established in the argument of the essay. The second paragraph we can read as the implications of the essay. It gives us a new view of Austen. In the conclusion, it is important to ask, so what? What have I added to the body of knowledge on my subject? In the third and final paragraph of the conclusion, the author situates his findings in relation to other critics, establishing his argument in relation to other scholarly opinions. Remember that at this point we are at the bottom triangle that is an inverted version of the triangle that represents the introduction. And the conclusion is actually doing just that. We began with the broad part of the triangle and narrowed to the thesis statement. In the conclusion, we go from the narrow, that is the specifics of the argument, back to broad again, and are again looking at scholarly opinion on Jane Austen, but now we are using our argument to consider how we have engaged with this opinion and what we have added to it.